Good afternoon again on this 3rd of April 2024 from me, Silvana Pavlovska, and In Focus with Silvana Pavlovska, broadcasting from Melbourne, Australia. I hope you're all well. Earlier today, we presented the most recent segment, and now we're going to continue with chapter 4, continue from where we stopped earlier in the day. Finally, as we mentioned previously, says Professor Igor Janev, since the President of the Republic of Macedonia, Mr. Georgi Ivanov, didn't accept to sign the PRESPA Act, especially the act of so-called ratification and the constitutional amendments, the Speaker of the Parliament, Talat Jaferi, not a Macedonian, by the way, but of Albanian Kosovo background, Talat Jaferi did so instead of him by fake, in other words, by an invalid signature, in blatant violation of the constitutional requirements. The Speaker of the Parliament, T. Jaferi, on the copies of the original text sent officially to the President of the state, Georgi Ivanov, placed the Speaker's signature. So Jaferi placed the signature where the President's signature should have been, and we now know that the President refused to sign that PRESPA Act, or the Act of Ratification. And sent the signed copy of this act to be published in the official gazette. So he sent it through to be published in the official gazette as if it is an official matter in order for the constitutional amendments to come into force. Isn't that unconstitutional? Unconstitutional? But he did place his signature there, even though it's unconstitutional, and then sent it to the official gazette for its publication so that it could come into force. Incredible. And as we may conclude at this point, says Professor Dr. Igor Janev, that was apparently the end of democracy in Macedonia. I wish to remind you that we are covering in full the latest publication, scholarly publication titled The PRESPA Agreement as Cultural Genocide of the Macedonian National Identity towards a termination or the termination of an illegal treaty by Professor Dr. Igor Janev, an eminent expert on international law who happens to be of Macedonian background, should you be interested to know. So we now have a case where Jaferi signs the document, he then sends it to the official gazette, they then publish it, not following procedures and constitutional regulations and acts, and end of democracy in Macedonia from then on. At the end, on the 11th of January 2019, there were no people on the streets of Skopje. Skopje is the capital city of Macedonia. There were none who were celebrating, nor were there any protesting against the new constitution, who were supposed to be protesting, and the new state's name. In that light, we may conclude that some future Macedonian government, presumably a democratic one, may, says Professor Igor Janev, invoke the Article 46 of the Convention of the Law of Treaties to nullify or terminate the PRESPA agreement on the grounds of flagrant violations regarding the competence to conclude treaties and other domestic violations. I shall repeat this article again. This is a significant piece of information. Article 46 of the Convention of the Law of Treaties needs to be nullified or terminated it needs to be used to nullify or terminate the PRESPA agreement. And Professor Igor Janev is saying whatever the future government of the country will be, they will need to look at invoking this Article 46 of the Convention of the Law of Treaties. Furthermore, we noted that the PRESPA agreement, or PA as it is known, after an invalid signature by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, took path that step-by-step government violated basically all the domestic legal procedures, including the norms of the referendum, the parliamentary procedures, and finally required acceptance of the act of ratification by the head of state. Yeah. So we've got an invalid signature by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and then the government took necessary steps which all violated all domestic legal procedures, including norms of the referendum, parliamentary procedures, and finally required the acceptance of the act of ratification by the head of state. All these facts were well known to Greece and members of the Greek parliament, that according to the PA, it had to give the last consent before the treaty had to be registered in the United Nations as a valid document. Relevant violations and obstacles were presented to the Greek parliament by MP Panos Kamenos, who reported that violations with respect to the blatant breaches of domestic procedures in the second party being the Macedonian state. What was self-evident was that in Macedonia, domestic procedures didn't even finish at the date provided by the PRESPA agreement, that is the 31st of December 2018, and that this treaty apparently didn't satisfy the basic principle of bona fide that was in fact broken by at least one party. As explained in the previous discussion, best and most direct methodology to get rid of the harmful or damaging PA is invoking violations of the set of Jus Cogens norms stipulated in the Article 53, that is violation of Jus Cogens norm of the Convention on the Law of Treaties from 1969. The Convention, it says, on the Law of Treaties 1969 covers the state's rights to sovereignty and non-interference in domestic jurisdiction of fundamental nature, and inviolability of judicial personalities, self-determination of peoples or states, including self-identification of peoples and nations as Jus Cogens norms, and right to nationality as emerging Jus Cogens norm, article number 46. Therefore, besides the article 46 and 57, violation of Jus Cogens norm of the Convention on the Law of Treaties, 1969, next democratic government could also invoke article 64, emerging Jus Cogens norm of that convention regarding the principle of damnatio memoria, and the right to nationality to terminate the PRESPA agreement unilaterally. Namely, PRESPA agreement contains provisions that regulate the past historical events in the manner of damnatio memoriae with the view to erase or completely redefine the ethnic or national history of one people. For that purpose, the Joint Commission on Historical and Cultural Redefinition provided by the PRESPA agreement was created in the similar manner as was in the case of the Bulgarian Joint Historical and Cultural Commission, namely to erase the past and redefine it. The sole purpose of that joint commission formed by the PRESPA agreement was to define restrictions on scientific and human thought so that the entire antique Macedonian culture, or the antiquity of the Macedonian culture, exclusively belonged to the present and the past Greek culture and state, and that such restriction must be of universal character, applied erga omnes with retroactive implementation that is recognized by international political, scientific, cultural community. In our view, says the Professor Igor Janev, any agreement such as PRESPA Treaty that impose eradication of any culture or national history or a nation itself, covering the past, present, and future, may not be legal. particularly if it is based on disrespect of the right on nationality and duty to respect ethnic and national beliefs and traditions. For that reason, Macedonia may invoke the human rights violations regarding principle of damnatio memoriae, since this norm emerged after the Declaration on Indigenous Peoples' Rights 2007 as a collective right and the jus cogens principle. Namely, even in the hypothetical situations where people or nations have a wrongful perception on themselves deeply rooted in their culture, that situation must also be respected from other subjects in the international community. Having said that, it appears that the PA served as a tool to creating exclusive brand name for Greece in illegal, artificial, and wrongful manner. Without the PRESPA agreement, the artificial name would not be possible because the states do not have exclusive rights over the states' names. For some reason, the Western countries didn't grasp the Macedonian situation at all, and they were absolutely ignorant of the existence of international norms with respect of the cultural sovereignty. And we shall end this one. Now we are 11:15, so thank you for watching. I will be seeing you shortly. Bye for now.